It's never been explicitly stated which brown child called Robyn to loosen the COVID rules. Could it have been Isabel? Could Kody's apathy towards Isabel's surgery be fueled by resentment and revenge? We have a lot to talk about. This is a really interesting theory. Hey everyone, what's up? It's Sarah and welcome back to my channel. First and foremost, I apologize that the background isn't exactly legible in this video. I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys because this is such an interesting theory, but I got a new camera stand and I have to adjust some things, so just bear with me. It's like if you change one thing, it throws the whole look off and it's just a mess. So I apologize for that. But I'm going to do some tweaks and we will be back on track. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about this really interesting theory that I saw posted on Reddit. You guys know how much I love Reddit. I love a good Reddit rabbit hole, going down many, many theories about our favorite shows. One of my favorite subreddits is the TLCSisterWives subreddit, and I saw this question posted there. And basically the question that was posed was, does anybody know which kid called Robyn to loosen the rules? And there were a bunch of answers, and some of the answers were surprising. And the answers are surprising because they vary depending on how you look at the situation. And because we don't know for sure who called, we're only left to speculate, and a lot of theories make sense to me. I'm gonna be totally honest. Initially, I thought it was either Gabe or Garrison that called Robyn to loosen up, and I think part of that had to do with the fact that they were so vocal in season 16 about thinking that Kody was being too hyper vigilant and that his rules were ridiculous. And then I think another part of me, just some maybe internalized gender bias, just assumed that it had to have been a male child. I don't know. I just really never took into consideration that it could be any of the girls until I saw people in this Reddit thread talking about how they think that it was Isabel who called. And to be honest, it makes a lot of sense. So let's look at some evidence that might support this theory. So the first point that I wanted to talk about was that Kody seemed to blame Christine more than Janelle when it came to the family's COVID defiance. Could this be in part because the call came from Isabel? Janelle and Christine both have older kids that lived out of state, and they were both traveling out of state to visit these kids during this period of hypervigilance on Kody's part. But Kody always spoke about how Christine was the one that was defiant of the rules and being reckless, even though Christine has always maintained that she and her kids were following CDC guidelines. And mind you, it was Janelle's boys, Gabe and Garrison, that suggested just lying to Kody and tell him they were adhering to the rules when they really weren't. So why did Christine get so much more of the blame than Janelle? Point number 2 I wanted to talk about is that Christine says flat out in the tell-all for season 16 that Isabel was upset and wanted to know why the nanny could go into Robyn's house, but she couldn't spend time with her siblings and her dad and Robyn.
Isabel was so mad. She's like, so I can't go over, but she can go over. I'm like, look, I don't know why. I don't even know. So I'll ask dad. Isabel was just mad. And she's like, I need to see my sisters. This is absolutely ridiculous.
So Isabel is right in between Aurora and Brianna when it comes to their ages. And I think just based off of what we've seen on the show, they were actually quite close. Losing access to see and hang out with your siblings that you were close to, especially in your older teenage years, would be really crappy. So I could see why Isabel would want to call and see what can be done about it. I could also see Brianna and Aurora planting the seed in Isabel's mind, like, hey, maybe you should call and ask, because they yearned for contact with the outside world. Kody flat out said that Robyn's kids were like prisoners in her house. Point number 3 I wanted to talk about is, would Gabe and Garrison even really care necessarily that they weren't being allowed over at Robyn's house? They both seem to want their mom to still be able to see Kody, but it didn't really seem like they had any burning desire to hang out with their siblings over at Robyn's house. It was more so, it seemed like they were wondering why they weren't having those occasional family get-togethers. Point number 4 I wanted to talk about was the fact that Robyn and Kody got so boo-hurt over Mary's rules joke.
Do you want one of these?
Yeah.
You know those rules that you made up?
I just checked with our
I
nanny.
actually
What are you
didn't.
doing?
I'm just gonna say it out loud. I know
These are what
everybody's
she
like
follows.
suspicious of me. Well, just please stop. Like, just don't be suspicious of me. Please realize
Robyn,
that
that was a
Kody.
joke.
Hey, realize that Kody has made these rules.
He's like, Mary, Robyn, you're making these rules, aren't you? And Robyn got so defensive. Mary turns around and goes, I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Well, no, you're not.
I feel like this phone call that occurred, that Robyn and Kody so vaguely speak about, occurred fairly early on when so much was still unknown and there was still so much confusion. Kody and Robyn had such a visceral reaction to Mary's joke. You can tell that it is a mega sore subject that has much larger implications. Also, I want to know, when did Kody make the definitive decision not to go to Isabel's surgery? We've seen over the years he has not taken Isabel's scoliosis very seriously, but prior he had been going to the doctor's appointments and attending her physical therapy sessions, so he was present at the very least. So I want to know, when did he make the decision not to go? Was it after this phone call was placed? Was this as some sort of, you're gonna question my rules, I'm now not even gonna put out the effort to go to your surgery? Honestly, I want to say Kody's a bigger person than that, but we see that Kody is very vindictive, so I wouldn't put it past him to do something like that to one of his own kids. Point number 5 that I wanted to talk about was that moment before Isabel's surgery where Kody wants to make sure that Isabel isn't gonna act like a bitter housewife towards him.
You excited?
I'm excited, yeah.
I'm sorry I can't go.
It's okay.
You understand, right?
Yeah, I get it. It's okay.
You sure?
Uh-huh.
You're not going to become a bitter old housewife?
No.
Because
I
your daddy
guess
didn't do this
not.
for you?
No.
I always regarded that as such an odd comment that Kody made, but it would make a lot more sense if we're viewing it in the context of maybe this was a response to all of Isabel's vocal challenges of Robyn and his rules. May have been holding on to some resentment, like, oh, are you gonna be mad about this too? And that leads me into point number 6, which is the fact that Kody really didn't help at all with Isabel's recovery from surgery, and he absolutely could have. And this goes to my punishment theory. Kody ends up going to Janelle's mother's funeral and quarantining with her at her house for 10 days. So we know if the moment or the situation called for it, Kody would quarantine away from Robyn. And he couldn't do that for his own child who was recovering from major surgery. I guess maybe it was a big ask. I mean, I'm still gonna sit there and judge Kody for not going to the surgery, but maybe it was a big ask for him to go for all that time. It was like over a month that they were gone. So, okay, he doesn't travel. He's not there pre, post, and immediately after surgery. But Isabel still required round-the-clock care for quite a while after she returned back to Flagstaff, and Kody could have absolutely been there to help Christine, and he chose not to be. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. He chose not to be there. Really, is it any wonder that Christine went out and got a massage? I mean, for fuck's sake. At this point where Isabel is having her surgery, it's many months into the pandemic, and businesses had reopened with safety measures in place. While one might not deem it entirely necessary to go get a massage, I mean, we can have a conversation about the importance of self-care in a separate conversation if the business itself had safety measures in place and if Christine was following CDC guidelines. I wouldn't quite regard it as entirely reckless. And point number 7 that I wanted to talk about is I'm just wondering if this all is just a vicious cycle occurring between Christine and Kody that has now sucked in poor Isabel. Did Christine's failing relationship fuel Isabel's need to call Robyn and ask about the rules, which then fueled Kody to have resentment towards Isabel and not want to attend her surgery? When you look at the fact that it was really Janelle's kids and Christine's kids that Kody was having the most problems with during the COVID quarantine, I think that if you look at Janelle, who is typically a very passive person, I don't think Janelle was discussing her relationship with Kody with her kids or around her kids. I think with Christine, and I think Christine has every good intention to present Kody as a good father to her kids. I think that Christine and her personality just can't help it sometimes that like emotions just come out. And honestly, I don't blame her at all for that. So basically, I don't think Janelle's kids really noticed much of a difference during these COVID quarantine, Kody's hypervigilant period. I just think it was less family gatherings, but Janelle even lived separately from the family for, I think it was like close to a year at one point early on. So I really don't think that this was like that big of a world change for Janelle's kids, but Christine has never been okay with just having a marriage in name only. She was never going to be in a married type relationship with Kody, and she always has been the one who's been very honest about working through her jealousy feelings and wanting Kody to be more present. And as she says, not be the basement wife. So I can only assume that in Christine's house, it has come out from time to time, Christine's frustrations with Kody. And this may have led to Isabel making a phone call. Seeing that Reddit thread and then kind of going through the last couple seasons of the show, I'm not gonna lie, I could totally see Isabel being the one who made that call to Robyn. I would love to know what you guys have to say. I can also see it completely being Gabe or Garrison. And wouldn't it be something if the call came from one of the kids who was living out of state? That would be something too. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. And it is July 1st, you guys, when I am recording this video, which means the Bless This Mess crew is now live. You can join and become a member of my YouTube channel, and that will give you 4 exclusive videos, one every Tuesday, as well as we will live stream once a month, where 2 of you each month will be invited to join me. We will hang out, discuss hot topics, take questions from the live chat. It's going to be a really good time. So I'm going to put that link to join down in the description. If you feel like you want to do that, go ahead. Anyways, you guys, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Reality Squad, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care. Have a good one. Much love.